Oh, sorry about that. It's me, Stormy here, the weather worker. And you folks might believe that, well, it's spring, but that doesn't mean there are not going to be storms. Mostly rainstorms, sometimes windstorms, but mostly rainstorms. And my work is truly needed. All right? So all that rain that anyone gets from, light rain to heavy rain, which I don't really, all that rain goes to give the woods their green, so the trees can grow. And I know you folks are going to say that, oh, that doesn't help me, Stormy. What does the rain do for me? The rain gives you drinking water. Yes, it goes into, the water that you drink. Well, it's skimmed and cleaned it before it gets to you, or if it's coming from a spring, but whatever, all that water comes from the sky. The clouds, yes, God makes it rain and I make it rain on God's behalf, but if you're working for God, then it's Him who's doing it. He gets the thanks for all of it. So, and I know all you folks out there, are like, oh, well, I had things to do outside, and now you made it rain. Well, if God didn't make it rain, or I didn't make it rain, if God didn't tell me to make it rain on that day, then those trees that you have, well, they wouldn't be all green, would they? You know? So, yeah, there has to be rain. And yes, sometimes the storms can sometimes be thunder, lightning, rainstorms, which I never understood why they just call them thunderstorms. There's also lightning in it too, and rain. And folks say, well, Stormy, how do you even do that? Well, as one of God's weather workers, I have to step on the clouds. And that makes the rain come out, huh? Then after I step around the clouds some more, that makes the thunder and lightning. Don't ask me. Sometimes God wants it to be a thunder, lightning, rainstorm. Sometimes He only wants it to be light rain. Sometimes He wants it to be heavy rain, you know. So, and rain is something you get all year round. No need what time of year it is. You don't only get rain, during spring and summer, but you get it in fall and you get it in winter too. So wherever you happen to be, you're going to get rain. Now, I know someone's going to put their hand up like they're in a classroom and say, well, Stormy, what about those slights of the earth that never get rain? Well, are you talking about slights of the far east and slights of dark land? Well, they get some rain. They don't get a lot of rain, but they get some rain. Well, I don't know about Antarctica. I don't know about frozen land, if it gets any rain or not. Maybe it does. Little to none, I would say. Same thing with the slights of dark land. They might get little to none, but they get some rain. All right. So, and I know a lot of folks hear the name Stormy and they're thinking, or Shamus or whatever, Shamus or whatever, they're thinking, oh, well, it's got to be bad storms. No, a storm doesn't have to be bad. It can be something that goes on for a long time. There's showers, which are short. Then there's storms, which I guess can go on for some time. Heavy rain is also known as a storm. But anyway, yeah. Sorry that I had to make it rain. But that's how God makes. God always has to make spring and there has to be rain. And some folks, they'll bitch and say they're getting too much rain, or they'll bitch and say they're not getting enough rain. Well, I can't be held answerable for that. I only do what God tells me to do. And yes, sometimes Lucifer likes to have sway over the weather. Now, I know some of you folks will think, well, aren't land catastrophes, aren't they weather? Fire isn't really weather to say. Wildfire and fire isn't a weather. I don't really say it's a weather or not. A fire hill blow up, I don't really think you can call that weather. A twister and a gale, yes, you can call those weather because, yes, they are weather. Bad weather, they kind of are in between of being a land catastrophe, which they are, and weather, bad. But I don't really have anything to do with really bad weather. I have to do with storms. And I do believe at the end of the day that I'm truly getting on look for being a weather worker. Now, some folks will say before I end this film, Stormy, they'll say, how did God choose you to be a weather worker? I do not know. All I know is one day God said he needed a weather worker, and I said, yes, I would be the weather worker, and I got chosen to be a weather worker after I showed myself to be worthy and bold. One of these days I could make up a back saga for myself about how I got to become a weather worker. Because Rainbow Bright, they don't really have a back saga for me. So you don't really truly know how I became a weather worker. When me and Rainbow Bright first met in Rainbow Bright and the Star Stealer, 9 Between 85 YL, that film, they just say I was a weather worker. And through the Rainbow Brights 2, the first following, which ran in 9 Between 86 YL, I was in it, but they never ever give me a saga. Maybe one day they were going to come up with a back saga about how God chose me to be a weather worker, but it never came up. So, sorry everyone for the rain, if you are getting rain where you're at. And sorry for the snow if you're happen to be somewhere where you're still getting snow. So anyway, that's all the time I got. Tell me what you think. Don't forget to, give this film a like, share and playlist it, and I'll see you later.